I hereby summon all my imps. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. With the change to the OTA and the latest patches coming out, I wanted to go through and talk about some of the cards that are left in the pile of cards that basically see no or little play, and things that you could do to fix them or change them so that you could actually see them in play. Some of these are pie in the sky dreams, some of these are reasonable, but I'm going to go through them all and we're going to talk about them real quick. First one up for us is, of course, Angel. I'm doing these from lowest cost to highest cost alphabetically. So Angel is basically never sees play. And the easiest way that you could fix them is to basically change them from a 1-2 to a 4-5. So that way in early game, if you drop the 1 and then devoured it, you get this nice big 4-5 that came out. But you still have to worry about drawing him into your hand or starting with him in your hand. That way you still got the danger of maybe you get him before you can destroy him, but if you get him early, then you can get a 4-5 out there. Next one that we're going to talk about is Electra. Electra basically doesn't see play anymore. And the easiest way for Electra to finally see play would to change her from on reveal, destroy a 1 cost card, to destroy a 1 or 2 cost card. Next one up for us is Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck is ongoing. Tap this to see the top card of your deck. I think you could just change this to an start of game effect without it being ongoing at all. And just change it to tap the back of your card to see the top card of your deck. No matter where you are in the game, if you start a game, you can tap on your card down near the bottom. And it'll reveal the back of your card, and then it would show the next card in your deck. Next one up for us after Howard the Duck is, of course, the Quicksilver. Now, I had 2 different ideas for this. The first one being that it starts in your opening hand. It should work the same way that it works when Agatha starts in your opening hand. Where instead of having the normal draw, you get 1 extra card. This is basically almost exactly that Agatha reads, and Agatha starts actually in your hand. So it's kind of weird that Agatha starts in your hand, but this doesn't, except even though they're basically written the same way. This one says start in your opening hand, and Agatha is written starts in your opening hand and plays your cards for you. So, the fact that they're running completely different is kind of weird. The only reason I'm not thinking that one might ever come into play, because it's a starting card. It's one of the first cards that you get, and if you got so used to having that extra card, once you pull this out of your deck, you might be like, why is my hand shorter? Because you're so used to it. I did have a second idea for this particular one, where it starts in your opening hand and it had an on reveal to add Scarlet Witch to your hand. So you have that nice 1 drop, and then you go right into that 2 drop with the Scarlet Witch. Or you can use Scarlet Witch in the later game to fix a location. It feels thematic for Quicksilver to go grab his sister or for them to be together. You kind of get that 1-2 filling curve starting game kind of nice thing. And it'd be an easy thing to put into the game. That's one that I had after Quicksilver. With, of course, Snowguard. There's a couple different fixes for Snowguard that I've thought about. There was one version of Snowguard where it had 3 forms, which were the bird, the bear, and I think it had a fox or something like that. And the bird was basically a 1-1 the fox was like a 1-3, and the bear was like a 1-6 or something like that. And they were all just plain stat minions. So it was basically you had to roll and hope that you got the right one. Another one that's been talked about a couple times with Snow Guard is if these effects only worked for yourself. Imagine if you had the bear and it triggered the effects of this location to your favor. So when you played this down, you got to pick where you wanted that effect to happen. So if you got like collapse mine, you could put the collapse mine on your opponent's side but not on your side. And if you got the eagle, ignore all location abilities next turn for you. You ignore all location abilities next turn. This way you would be able to get into Sanctum Sanctorum, or maybe get into a throne, so that way it would work almost kind of like a death. And that'd be an interesting one. Another one that's been talked about for Snow Guard that you could talk about, which would basically be that anytime you played Snow Guard, you could choose. Do you want the bird or do you want the bear? So that way you don't have to pick which side you want. Those are all things that I think would make, Snow Guard actually playable to fun. Next one up for us is the Watcher. The Watcher is such low stats that you should just give him start of game. You can just take out the ones that's in your hand and change at the start of game. Because he's only useful on turn 1 and turn 2. For basically all situations. The other thing that you could put on the Watcher, if you wanted to make him do this, instead of him just seeing locations, he could also see unrevealed cards, so he could be good for anything that's like that's in Dark Dimension. That would make sense for the Watcher, that he can watch anything no matter where it is. Those are basically the ones for one that I think need the most work. One's going to be the biggest category because it's the hardest to balance. Now we're going to move on to the 2s. This one's been talked about a lot in the 2 category, which is Adam Warlock. Changing him from a 2-0 to a 2-1. So that he can get the at least 1 draw if you play him on an untended location. Adam Warlock is such a strong card, but he doesn't see play because of the fact that you gotta be winning the location. And that's fine, but if you give him the 1, then you play him down and hope you get lucky, you at least get that 1 draw. Next one up for us is Baron Mordo. Baron Mordo is a card that I think could easily be pushed up to a 2-4 or 2-5, believe it or not. Even though he draws a card for your opponent, that's a really big boon to your opponent. And there are times where you're going to be drawing like an Arnim Zola for your opponent, which means that it being 6 didn't mean anything to them. Or you're going to draw something like an Iron Man, where it's like, that's as good as if you Iceman their Iron Man. So if you change this to a 2-4 or 2-5, it'd be nice and playable, it'd still have the same effect, and that's fine in my opinion. Next one up for us, and I'm gonna go back, is Domino. Domino's been talked about a lot. My easiest solution for Domino is you move her to a 5-6 and you do her on turn 5 instead of turn 2. That would make her almost a pseudo American Chavez, where you get her on 5, you get American Chavez on 6, making your draws more consistent up till 5. I think that's a very interesting one. There's been some talk about making her indestructible and giving her the ability to not be affected by negative effects because she's lucky. That's something else you could do. Basically make her a quasi-colossus. Next up, we gotta talk about the two big ones and two, and they gotta be talked about together. Actually, that's the ones for two. We're moving on to three, I should say. We gotta talk about these two ones together. It's Captain America and Punisher. These two cards, unfortunately, are not seeing play. So we're going to talk about them together because they got to be kind of talked about together. So for Punisher and Captain America, you basically do about the same thing, you just would flip-flop it still. So I'm going to do Punisher because it makes more sense this way. I'm going minus 1 power for every card that's revealed or moved to this location. So if you play a card at that location, it basically gets stung. Like a wasp sting. So if you played a 3-2 there, it's now a 3-1. You move a card into there, that's a 3-2, it's now a 3-1. Making that particular location punishing for the Punisher. And then you do the opposite for Captain America. Plus 1 power for every card that's moved or revealed here. Every card kind of gets inspired by Captain America. That way you could play with bounce, you could play with move, gives Captain America a better interesting thing. You could play with the Punisher and basically say, no, this is my location. If you try to play anything in here, you're going to really have to fight for it. You're really going to be punished for it. But I think that's a good one for Captain America and Punisher to have that ability. Next one up for me is Kingpin. I honestly think you could take off the turn 6 on Kingpin and it'd be perfectly fine. Even in the best case scenario, this is destroying 3, maybe 4 cards. So the best case scenario is you play this on 3. On 4 you grab something. On 5 you grab something, and on 6 you grab something. So, I mean, the best case scenario is you play this, you play like Polaris right after this. And then after Polaris you play Arrow. And then after Arrow you play Magneto, and that's basically your best situation for this. And that's a lot of setup, and you can basically get the same kind of setup going the other way around by playing Wong and then playing Black Panther and then playing Artem Zola. Or by playing Wong and then playing Mystique and then playing Gambit. So I don't think it's unfair to take the turn 6 off this at this point, especially for these stats. You might have to lower him down to 3-3 to make that work, but then he's falling really well into the Silver Surfer package again. Next up for us where are you? Is our 4 drops. The rest of the 3s are fine now. I did have Sean at one point, but she just got buffed. Now we're going to move on to the 4 drops. So for the 4 drops, we're going to talk about Strong Guy here. And Strong Guy here, I think his ongoing should be changed to plus 1 power for each card missing from your hand. The problem with Strong Guy is he's such an on-off switch that if you even have 1 card, he's not anything better than a 4-4. And it's really hard to get your hand down to being completely empty. And if you got plus 1 power for each card missing from your hand, he would basically fall into the same category. He'd be a 411 instead of a 410. So it's not that big of a boost to do it that way, and then you don't have to worry about your hand being completely empty. Next one up for us. Believe it or not, we're already getting out of 4s. They have one more on 4s. Yeah, I have one more on 4s, sorry. The other one that I had in 4s was Omega Red. You change this down from plus 10 power, or ahead by 10 power, to ahead by 7 power. You do the same thing, it'd be fine. Right, so that's the end of the 4s. Now we're going to talk about the 5s. There's only a couple in the 5s. In fact, there's only one in the 5s. And it's the weirdest one ever, which is King the Conqueror. Now, King the Conqueror is fine and dandy as far as I'm concerned, if you draw him on turn 5 or turn 6, because then he draws you an extra card. Knowing where your opponent is going to put their cards doesn't really help a lot, because both of you get to rewind the turn. Now, if it worked like a big daredevil, where only you rewinded the turn, that'd be huge on turn 5. But the least they could do is let King draw you a card no matter what. Believe it or not, I think every 6 is perfectly fine. There's basically not a 6 that I don't think sees some semblance of play. The one that might need the biggest biff is just Spectrum. And you can change this from plus 2 power to times 2 power. Kind of working as a onslaught, but for ongoing. So it would basically be like an ongoing, not the effect, but the power. And that might be a little bit too strong for Spectrum, but it'd be interesting too. Because a lot of the stuff on ongoing doesn't have a lot of power behind it. You look at a lot of the stuff for ongoing, you can see that a lot of it doesn't have that much power behind it. There's some that are interesting, like of course, like the Thanos and the Sarah, but that would even put Sarah up to a 5/8, which isn't the best thing in the world. So, I mean, that'd be kind of interesting. Maybe you have to change it to base so that way, like Devil Dinosaur didn't get out of hand. So that way, the base of Devil Dinosaur would only become like 6. But a lot of these don't get that much power. The biggest one will probably be Warpath, which would make that a 410, but that's a long way to go to get a 410. And that's with me even changing this from a plus sign to a multiplication sign. I don't think there's a single ongoing that really falls into there, except maybe Living Tribunal. That would make Living Tribunal an 18. That'd be super strong for Living Tribunal, so maybe somewhere in between. Maybe plus 5 power, but that seems weird. But even with plus 5 power, I don't think a lot of these would be that broken. The biggest one that breaks at that particular point is the Iron Man. So, if the Iron Man goes from a 0 to a 5 at that point, which makes him a 10. So maybe you can figure out something in between. Maybe times 2 power max 5. That could be something where it's, because even on that would turn Living Tribunal into a 14? That doesn't seem that broken, but it seems pretty good. I mean, Alvin's Living Tribunal fights a lot of this. Other than Living Tribunal, not a lot of people have anything worth that be really interesting. Especially for the space power. Living Tribunal is the only one that really kicks it in the butt. But even with 2 on Living Tribunal, you're not talking too bad because that brings it up to 11. You let one card hurt every other card that it could possibly help. The only other card that might get bitten, that would be Red Skull, because that would turn Red Skull into a 28. But plus 5 on Red Skull wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. That's easier, that's harder to pull off than doing the Shuri combo, but then you don't have to worry. So, it's gotta be somewhere in between. I would let Orca see some play. But other than that, I don't know how you really fix Spectrum. You could fix Spectrum, because she's supposed to work with ongoings. How else could you do it? On reveal, give your ongoing card. You can just raise her up to 5, and that hurts for certain things. But it hurts a lot more than it helps on most of these. So the times 2 max 5 wouldn't be the worst thing in this world. Times 2 max 4 maybe? That doesn't seem the worst in the world. That way you're kind of splitting the difference. Some of the lower ones get better on this. But if you do times 2 max 4 when anything hit more than 4 anyways. Maybe just plus 4 might be worth it on her. It's a really hard one for me to figure out. I'm without completely rewriting her from scratch. I don't know how you do her. What would be good for ongoing? On reveal, you'd have to figure from on reveal then. You just have to make her a because card. Reactivate all your ongoings. Your ongoings can't be silenced. Reactivate all your ongoings can't be silenced. That'd be kind of interesting, kind of an Enchantress Rogue counter. That could be interesting to play on Spectrum. So that way you don't have to worry about something like Enchantress or Rogue taking your card. That'd be interesting. Okay, so those are all the ones that I think need some sort of work. That's not that many that we have to talk about. Even not for the game that exists. There are some honorable mentions that are like on the fringe that I'm going to go through real quick. So we're going to talk about all the ones that I think are just like on the fringe of needing a fix. First one that we're going to talk about is the Drax and the Groot. If you look at Groot really should at this particular point say plus 3 power. If you catch it, and Drax should say plus 4 power. If you catch it. Because it's really weird that you're at this plus 2, plus 2, plus 2, all the way up the ladder, and then you hit Gamora, and Gamora goes straight to 5. So if you did a couple of these that were in between, like group being 3 and Drax being 4, it'd be like, okay, +2, then +3, then +4, then +5 would make sense. Next one up for us on just the things I think are like on the fringe and need just a little bit of work. Or Quake. I don't think Quake needs to be in the middle location for her to work. I don't think that's a necessary thing for her. I think it'd be way better if you just shifted the location no matter where you put her. That's one that I think just needs a little bit of work. Is Master Mold. Master Mold is so weird because it's supposed to be the big Sentinel, but it's smaller than the Sentinels that it even gives to you. It's a 2-2 that gives you a 2-3. There's 2 ways to basically fix this. Number 1, you can change it back to the way that it was originally data mined, which is it put 3 Sentinels in your opponent hand, which really clogged up their opponent hand, making it so it was hard for them to play. Another thing that you could do is just make it so that the Master Mode was a 2-4 or maybe a 2-5, so that 1 Sentinel didn't beat it. It would take 2 Sentinels to beat it, or a Sentinel and something else to beat it. And then just, we gotta talk about it because they get brought up from time to time. You look at the no ability cards, and you take them by their power. It starts off fine, with Wasp being a 0-1. And then Mighty Knight being a 1-2. And then you for some reason get off this track with Shocker, which goes to a 2-3. And then Cyclops, which is a 3-4. And then Thing, which is a 4-6. And then Hulk, which is a 6-12. So either Thing needs to be like a 4-5, and Hulk needs to be a 6-7. Or you need to fix stuff like Shocker for Shocker to be a 2-4, Cyclops to be a 3-6, Hulk to be a 4-8, Abomination to be a 5-10, and then Hulk will be the 6-12. The only reason that I'm not pushing for this at all is because of High Evolutionary. But it's really weird that the only time you see these cards played anymore is in High Evolutionary. And these should be the stat lines that are good for a no ability card. So those are the cards that I think could get buffs in the future, some ways that they could be reworked. For all things considered, that's not that many cards in all of Marvel Snap that aren't seeing some sort of play, aren't being played somewhere. Maybe not in the most unique decks or most meta decks, but pretty much every other card, I think, in Marvel Snap sees some sort of play. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. And as always, remember, play for fun.